Hi, I'm Dr. Charity Flores, Director of Assessment for the Indiana Department of Education, and I'm going to provide a brief overview today regarding assessment. The first thing that I wanted to note is that we do not have any significant changes with assessments for the 2017-2018 school year. Given that, I am going to spend most of my time today focused on our transition to iLearn, because there are some significant changes as we think about the 2018-2019 school year. As I noted, iLearn is going to be our new assessment beginning in the 2018-2019 school year. We currently are working through the request for proposals process, noted here as RFP, where vendors are submitting how they can meet our requirements. We're hoping to move quickly to execute our contract in the coming weeks, hopefully in October or November. In terms of iLearn, and as we think about the new assessment, I want to take a few minutes and talk about how iLearn will be the same in relationship to the assessments for iStep. First, we will be assessing the same Indiana academic content standards. Secondly, we will also be assessing the same content areas. We will continue to have assessments for English language arts, mathematics, science, and social studies. In social studies, there will be a slight change in that we will only be assessing grade 5 going forward. Additionally, under House Enrolled Act 1003, a graduation requirement continues to exist. The state board has convened a special panel to determine the graduation requirements and will likely conclude in December. An accountability component will also continue to exist, and this will be regulated through ESSA. And finally, we will continue to utilize technology for this assessment going forward. iLearn is different as we think about the assessment for iStep, in that iStep is using a fixed form assessment where all students receive the same items. iLearn will be utilizing a computer adaptive testing component where the types of items that each student receives will vary based on the difficulty of each item and how the student performs throughout the assessment. In iLearn, we will continue to assess grades 3 through 8. However, we will use end-of-course assessments based on the 2014 standards to assess students in Algebra 1, English 10, and Biology. We're excited about the opportunity to provide additional accommodations and student supports once we finalize our vendor. Also, an approved change will be that all reporting will complete by July 1st. Currently, we have reporting that takes place in phases as we work through the data reporting cycle. This will change in that we're trying to complete all rescores by that July 1st date. We will also be moving to a single test window towards the end of the school year, and we'll have the opportunity to revise cut scores since this is a new assessment. In the coming months, we're excited about the opportunity to convene educators in Indiana to develop new blueprints and specifications. In terms of our next steps, we've worked through a couple of these already as we formalized our transition to iLearn. First, we needed to determine what the requirements would be for the new assessment. The state board and several other stakeholders were involved in this process. Secondly, we solicited proposals based on those requirements to fulfill the RFP. We've just finalized the process to determine a potential vendor for this assessment so that we can begin the work on the 2019 assessment. We're working through the final stages of this process and hope to secure a contract soon. As we consider assessment, we go through a process that's very methodical and systematic to really move ourselves from point A to point B in terms of developing and finalizing an assessment. The first step in this process is to develop blueprints and specifications where we define what content will be assessed and to what degree. Once we identify that information, we transition into writing passages or items that are needed to fulfill those requirements. The Department of Education is involved in reviewing and editing all of those items that are newly developed to ensure alignment. Educators assist in this process by reviewing the items for content, bias, and accessibility. Once items are finalized, they move into the test forms where they can be field tested and at a point in time become operational if they meet the minimum statistical requirements. When we transition to iLearn and following the first operational administration, we will conduct a standard setting process, again convening educators to determine the proficiency levels for the new assessment. The final step in the process will be to deliver score reports. So in terms of our next steps, once we finalize our contract, we will begin to develop a new blueprint with Indiana educators based on our standards. It is our hope that this blueprint will be available in the spring so that educators have a full year to plan ahead in considering the new assessment. Following the blueprints, we will also build out our test and item specifications again with Indiana educators. Ultimately, our goal is to deliver the new assessment in 2018-19. I want to reinforce that educators will be involved in every step of the process as we develop our new assessment. From blueprints, specifications, development, and cut scores, all of these are based on feedback and recommendations from educators. In the next several months, we'll be recruiting educators from across the state to make sure that we have a representative engagement of all educators throughout this process to ensure that Indiana has the best assessment moving forward. Again, educators will be involved in blueprints, item specifications, an item audit, item review, and ultimately standard setting.